Why am I? Is it Jim or
The council will come to order. All rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence for our veterans, service members, and those who have given the ultimate sacrifice. We will do our land acknowledgement. We honor and acknowledge the Massachusetts, Pennacook, Pawtucket peoples, whose ancestral lands we now call home and on which we gather today. We express gratitude to the indigenous peoples who have cared for this land for generations, predating European colonization and continuing to the present. Moving forward, we are committed to ensuring that the histories, voices, and contributions of indigenous peoples are recognized, respected in the life of our city. The clerk will call the roll.
I just want to add one more acknowledgement, please.
We have one more. One second, Councilor Winslow.
All right. Former President Jimmy Carter passed away, so I think it's appropriate. It was really nice. One of his legacies for the council here is we had the opportunity to actually help build the Habitat for Humanity buildings along Main Street. So his spirit lives on here in Malden, that people in Malden, and we're still working on homes that people can live in, and it just really is. I was just listening. He's just someone who believed in loving who was ever in front of him. So I think it's a great spirit that way. So I just think that we should honor him. So just a moment of silence for Mr. Carter and his family.
Thank you. Any other acknowledgements, or the clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Cologne Hayes. Here. Councilor Condon. Here. Councilor Crowe. Here. Councilor Linehan. Here. Councilor McDonald. Here. Councilor Sika. Here. Councilor Simonelli is in our meeting with us tonight via Zoom, so all of our votes tonight will be taken by roll call. Councilor Spatafora. Councilor Taylor. Yes. Council President. Oh, sorry. Councilor Winslow. Here. And Council President O'Malley.
Here. Under the provisions of the open meeting law, for those in attendance, please be informed that UMA Urban Media Arts will be recording this evening's meeting. So just to be aware, there will be audio and video recordings of this meeting. We are just going to take this agenda a little bit out of order. I want to first thank former Council President Steve Winslow for his service on the Council in 2024. Part of our tradition here in Malden is the outgoing President is presented a plaque with a gavel, which I have here. So I'd like, if Council President Winslow could join, I'd like to present this to him.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll do a picture now. This is right here.
All right. Thanks, everybody. It's been an honor to serve as your president. Good luck to the new president and incoming president, President O'Malley.
Thank you, Councilor Winslow. I do, so just I appreciate everyone's patience as I've recovered from my health. It's just been really a lot, and I do appreciate all your support over the years. I will be taking, just so everyone knows what the committees are, I will be taking paper 1425 out of order so I can present the committees and they can be amended as adopted and presented. So I'll hand those out now to the councilors here, and I have a short presentation, very, very short. Can you hand? There you go.
Thank you.
Actually, I need one. Yep. Yep, it's perfect. So, will the clerk please read the paper?
Paper 14-25, Council President O'Malley will announce the appointments of the 2025 council committees.
Thank you very much. So, again, this is what I'm presenting here is our overarching goal for the City Council in 2025. I worked with Ron Hogan, our Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer, to kind of come up with these goals, and I really appreciate the help that he's been. I always believe it's important to give credit where credit's due, and he helped me very immensely as I was making sure there'd be a smooth transition. One of the overarching goals is to remove barriers to results, and we want to engage more. So I want to embrace technology in some off-night committee meetings. And when I say technology, I mean the Zoom, the Teams platform that we have rolled out as a city. I would like to notify the mayor to submit proposals directly to the council or committees to help streamline how papers are sent down, giving him direct access to the council. Allow any committee papers to get submitted directly to committees, so that right now what happens is we are presenting a lot of our ideas to the full council. They're getting vetted without really having any real thought to them. So sending them to committees first so that they can be worked through, maybe improved, and then sent out for full hearing. Allow the public to remotely access all meetings over Teams. And then at the next meeting, I'd like to generate 2025 goals with all of you. So rather than me telling you what my goals are, I would like to be able to develop this with all of you in coordination. And finally, I'd like to encourage our key resources to participate in city meetings. So as you'll see tonight, we have new tables here that are an extension of the dais, and these are for our distinguished guests, which include the city solicitor, our clerk of committees, our treasurer, and our controller. Our controller gives his regards. He was not feeling well tonight and was not able to attend. But this is an area where people can bring their work, they can bring their laptops, so they don't feel like they have to have everything on their laps or on the chairs around them, and it really kind of highlights a place of distinction for our financial team, our legal team, and our support staff. I will go on to the actual, some of the new and changed committees that we're going to have. So a couple of the new committees that we're going to have is Arts and Culture. This committee shall work to expand arts and culture opportunities in Malden. The committees will work to kind of figure out their own mission statements, and we can always amend them as such. There will be another committee called Community Traditions, which shall work to inventory and document cherished Malden traditions in our community. There are so many things like this, whether it's 7 bumps or the road races or just different things that we need to document now that shows what makes Malden special, particularly as we lose people that we love in our lives or are close to us who remember traditions that we might not. The third new committee, and some people might think this is a little bit getting ahead of yourself, is the Quadricentennial Planning Committee, which is for our 400th anniversary. This committee shall work on the planning and fundraising for Malden's 400th in 2049. You know, it's very difficult to fund major projects, and you know, the 400th anniversary or 100th anniversary is very different than, say, a 25 or a 50th. So in the past, they would have built monuments, they would have built buildings. So if we can start saving a little money now for the next 25 years and put it into an investment account with the help of our treasurer, I think that we can actually have a really nice little pocket of money to do something nice for whoever is holding this seat in 2049. In terms of what is going to be changing, our Public Properties Committee was proposed by Councilor Winslow last term to combine public properties, public works, and our cemetery committee. I'm proposing that we codify that permanently and that we expand it to 5 members. And one of the reasons being is Councilor McDonald has indicated that, you know, with 3 members, it's really difficult to talk to your colleagues and do some business without violating the open meeting law. So by having 5 members, it allows you to get quorum easier, but also conduct business. And finally, small committees of 3 have been increased to 5 as much as possible. There are still a few 3-member committees, but primarily they've been updated to 5. And now I will just unveil the standing committees. The Community Engagement and Inclusion Committee will be chaired by Councilor Cologne Hayes, Vice Chair McDonald, Member Spatafora. That is all of our at-large councilors, which I think it really helps with engagement because they cover this entire city. Finance is McDonald Chair, Cologne Hayes Vice Chair, Member Spatafora, Condon, Crow, and Winslow. License will be chaired by Sika, Vice Chair Condon, Members Cologne Hayes, McDonald, Taylor. Personnel and Appointments will be chaired by Councilor Linehan, Vice Chair Crow, Members Condon, Cologne Hayes, Taylor. Public Safety will be chaired by Councilor Condon, Vice Chair McDonald, Members Sika, Winslow, Simonelli. Public Properties will be chaired by Councilor Spatafora, Vice Chair McDonald, Members Sika, O'Malley, and Linehan. Rules and Ordinance will be chaired by Councilor Winslow, Vice Chair Linehan, Members Crow, O'Malley, and Taylor. I will be moving on to our special committees. Again, this is some of the new ones. So Arts and Culture will be chaired by Councilor Taylor, Vice Chair Linehan, Members Crow, Sika, O'Malley. Community Traditions will be chaired by Councilor Sika, Vice Chair O'Malley. Members include Condon, Crow, and Cologne Hayes. Charter Review will be continued to chair by Winslow, Vice Chair O'Malley, and Member Simonelli. The City Clerk is an ex officio member, as well as our Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer. The Quadricentennial Planning Committee will be chaired by myself, O'Malley, Vice Chair Spatafora, and Member McDonald. We're asking that the mayor or a designee be part of that committee, that the CFO or their designee be a member of the committee, a member of the 375th Committee, and a member of the Chamber of Commerce. The Waterfront Access Committee will be chaired by Cologne Hayes, Vice Chair Crow, Members Sika, O'Malley, Winslow. Our Harbor Master is ex officio on that committee also. And finally, we have our ex officio committees, which are appointed by the chair. We have Affordable Housing Trust Fund, Linehan, the Climate Action and Sustainability Committee, O'Malley, Complete Streets, Winslow, the Comprehensive Plan Steering, Linehan, O'Malley, Library Trustee, O'Malley, Malden Riverworks, Cologne Hayes, Open Space, Taylor and Cologne Hayes, Public Property, Crow, Sign Design, Spatafora and Taylor, Site Plan Review for the RIO MBTA is O'Malley and Linehan, Site Plan Review for the Malden River, Crow, Winslow, Cologne Hayes, and Site Plan Review for Rose Quarry is Sika and Spatafora. Is there a motion to receive and place on file on Councilor Sika's motion, seconded by Councilor Cologne Hayes, to place this on file? The clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Cologne Hayes?
Yes.
Councilor Condon?
Yes.
Councilor Crowe?
Yes.
Councilor Linehan?
Yes.
Councilor McDonald?
Yes.
Councilor Sika?
Yes.
Councilor Simonelli? I have to,
Oh, I can do it. Councilor Sika, Councilor Simonelli? Yeah, he voted yes.
Councilor Spatafora?
Yes.
Councilor Taylor?
Yes.
Councilor Winslow?
Yes.
Council President O'Malley?
Yes. Because there are some changes to our standing committees, I have presented proposed amendments related to the number of members. So is there a motion to amend the committees the committee structure as presented? On Councilor Collins' motion, seconded by Councilor McDonald, the clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Cologne Hayes?
Yes.
Councilor Condon?
Yes.
Councilor Crowe?
Yes.
Councilor Linehan?
Yes.
Councilor McDonald?
Yes.
Councilor Sika?
Yes.
Councilor Simonelli?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Spatafora?
Yes.
Councilor Taylor?
Yes.
Councilor Winslow?
Yes.
Council President O'Malley?
Yes. So just so everyone knows, this will be docketed again next week to take the final vote. Because our standing committees are in the rule book, this is technically a rule change, which means you cannot do it in the same night, so we will do it again next week. Next order of business.
Staff from the Office of Strategic Planning and Community Development will appear before the City Council to provide an update on changes in state law related to accessory dwelling unit zoning, including the expected local application of this new by right designation.
Thank you, everyone. So as you all know, a number of city staff, including myself, sorry, I should introduce myself, Alex Pratt. I am the incoming OSPCD director. A number of city staff have been working on understanding and preparing for the new accessory dwelling unit law. That includes Deborah Burke, Maria Louise, Ron Hogan, Nelson Miller, Michelle Romero, Alicia McNeil, Ben Gately, who's staff in OSPCD, and myself. To give an update from the team, I want to invite Michelle Romero.
Good evening, Michelle Romero, City Planner. We'll give you a few key dates to do with the new law. One is August 6, 2024. That is when the governor signed into law the so-called Affordable Homes Act, which amends the state zoning law, which is Mass General Laws, Chapter 48. On December 6, 2024, the State Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities released draft guidelines regarding that law. And then finally, the important date to remember is February 2nd, 2025. That is the date the regulatory portion regarding accessory dwelling units of this new state law goes into effect. I'd like to give you some highlights of the new state law and the draft guidelines. So first, the state law calls the new unit an accessory dwelling unit. It is in fact simply an additional dwelling unit. A single additional unit at a property must be allowed by right. The use of land or structure for the additional unit may be subject to reasonable regulations, including but not limited to site plan review regulations concerning dimensional setbacks and the bulk and height of structures. More than one or a subsequent or additional unit shall require a special permit. An additional unit may be added to any building or property with a dwelling unit. An additional unit may be added to property located in a zoning district where single-family dwellings are allowed. For Malden, this means Residence A, Residence B, Residence C, residential office, and neighborhood business zoning districts. The maximum size of the additional unit is the smaller of 900 square feet or half the size of the principal dwelling. The additional unit cannot be required to have parking if located within half mile of a subway station or bus station or bus route, which is the entire city of Malden, except a small portion of the Middlesex Fells Reservation. The additional unit cannot be required to be owner-occupied, nor can the principal dwelling. The additional unit cannot be required to be affordable. The additional unit must comply with building, fire, and sanitary codes, and it may be subject to restriction and prohibition on short-term rental. Some of those requirements I just read are contained in the actual law. The law itself is 27 lines of text. Others that I just read are provided in the draft guidelines, which currently is 6 pages of text. It may change and still needs to be finalized by the state. Zoning amendments that are proposed in City Council Paper 13 of 2025, which we will discuss later, are intended to update Malden's zoning ordinance to reflect this new state law regarding accessory dwelling units. And finally, I will just end with the statement that the magnitude of the impacts which this law will have on most neighborhoods in Malden remains to be seen. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the city planner?
Council President, I got a question.
Councilor Simonelli, just 1 second. We're trying to figure out how to make you louder over here.
That's unusual.
No, I can hear him, but there must be like Councilor Simonelli, can you try talking now?
Yes, sir.
Oh, perfect. We can hear you great.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I know that we were supposed to have several meetings before this, but, you know, I know there's not much we can do because it's state law. But this is going to have a adverse effect in the Holyoke section of my neighborhood because, as you know, I have an incredible amount of absentee landlords. And to add more dwelling units is going to have a serious impact in my neighborhood. Do we have anything that counters that? City planner?
Thank you. What's proposed, you will hear later on this evening in the zoning amendment proposal that the team has worked on, the mayor's team has worked on to present to you in that city council paper, are various requirements and regulations that are allowed as far as we understand under the new state law. They will include review by a site plan review committee and compliance with certain requirements, basically just dimensional controls. As I mentioned, no parking can be required for these new units. That doesn't mean we are not going to be able to address parking for the existing unit, but we will get to that during the discussion.
So would we be prohibited to put like an extra tax on absentee landlords because they don't keep up with their property as it is now? So, you know, if they increase by another unit, I'd like to be able to have, I was talking to Chuck Rannigan and maybe putting together some sort of an account somewhere so that we could, you know, start putting on a tax to these absentee landlords that don't take care of their properties so that we could send people out to take care of the properties so people that own property around that area don't have to suffer the burden of this.
Yeah, I would defer to the treasurer and controller regarding, and the assessor regarding taxes. I don't have information about how these will be taxed or whether we can do additional taxing.
But are we prohibited from it?
Councilor Simonelli, I think that the discussion, one of the requests I've made to the presenters related to this is that after we refer it to a joint ordinance and planning board hearing, that we meet an ordinance to kind of flesh out more of this. So I would, I'm not sure if we can put them on the spot to ask if something is legal necessarily. I think we have to do some research to figure that out. But it's definitely something that I can commit to you that we're willing to have that conversation in ordinance.
Fine.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Councilor McDonald.
Yeah, thank you so much for this. And, you know, just on my colleague's point about absentee landlords, I think that's a huge concern. And landlords who are not taking care of their property and their tenants. I think that there are some, so I'd be very interested in pursuing that in parallel with this, as I imagine maybe some of you all might as well. But, you know, we don't even require landlords to register with us, so we don't even really know who they are. We don't necessarily know whether they're following our existing health codes about inspections between tenants. We have some really excellent landlords, folks who, you know, are just renting out units in their building and care about the community, and then we have a whole bunch who don't. And so, anyways, I just want to say I'd be very excited to work on that. My question to the city planner and the team is, so in this, so this is a staff proposal about the best approach here, as I understand from the mayor's memo. And I was wondering if you could speak to what were some of the priorities or the values or the, like, what went into shaping this proposal? What were you trying to accomplish? What were things that felt really important to you in developing this proposal to bring to us?
Do you think it would be helpful if I read the mayor's memo, or do you want to read the mayor's memo in? That provided some detail. Do you want to read that into the record, how he introduced this paper?
So the city clerk will read the
Okay.
memo. Yeah, actually, why don't we do that? I appreciate the presentation. I think what we're going to do is we're going to take up paper 1325. The clerk, will you please read the paper and the mayor's memo?
Paper 13-25, be it ordained by the Malden City Council that the Code of the City of Malden, Title 12 zoning, is hereby amended to establish requirements and regulations for accessory dwelling units, including definitions in the establishment of a site plan review committee for accessory dwelling units, by amending chapters and sections 12.030, 16.010, 20.010, 32.060, and by adding new subsections 12.28, 010K, 32.030D, 32.030E. And then the mayor's memo is as follows, dated January 2nd. As you know, the State Affordable Homes Act, signed into law last year, requires that accessory dwelling units be allowed to be built by right in single-family zoning districts similar to other specially protected Dover Amendment uses under MGL Chapter 48, Section 3. Under the law, ADUs will be allowable by right as of February 2nd, 2025, regardless of whether a municipality has updated its zoning to comply. The new law, however, allows municipalities to create regulations for ADUs in several areas, including regulating size, dimensional controls, and other regulations. It is therefore paramount that we have appropriate zoning in place before the February 2nd effective date. After the law was signed, city staff, including city planner, OSPCD director, parking director, ISD director, and city solicitor, developed proposed zoning amendments that will bring our zoning into compliance with the new state law while establishing allowable regulations to help mitigate the negative impacts of ADUs on our community. The actual impacts on the city remain unknown, but have the potential to be significant. These potential impacts include but are not limited to health, safety, nuisance, and parking concerns. Unfortunately, the state's Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities has been slow to provide guidance throughout this process and only released draft regulations last month, which may change. Nevertheless, our team has worked tirelessly to develop the proposal that is now before you. Highlights of the zoning proposal are as follows. Defines ADUs and establishes regulations. Prohibits short-term rentals of ADUs consistent with existing city ordinance. Parking requirements, size and dimensional controls, site plan review. Despite the above-mentioned challenges, I believe the proposed amendments before you represent the city's best approach at this time to achieving compliance with the new law while simultaneously addressing the interests of Malden and its residents. Thank you for your prompt consideration and action given the state's February 2nd effective date.
Thank you very much for reading that. Councilor McDonald, so I hope that helps elicit some of the priorities that were in this current version. And then, like I said, we have a plan to really dive into this into ordinance. And what we've been advised by our city planner is that this is the ceiling, and that if we want to amend it downward, we're able to do that. What we can't do is we can't make it more restrictive. So that's one of the discussions that we really want to have in the ordinance committee, is if there are any amendments, rather than making them on the floor now, we would rather do that in ordinance prior to the public hearing. The one caveat is if you want to add anything else to this, now would be the time to add anything, because we can't add after, we can only take away.
Can I respond, Council President?
Yes, please, you're encouraged.
Yeah, thank you, that's very helpful. I mean, I think that I think the mayor's memo, which I read, does shed some light, but I think just trying to understand, like, what's the intended impact of some of the pieces in this as proposed would certainly be helpful to me, because I have my interpretation, but I'm not sure that that's necessarily the intent, or that's what's, or that others may have other perspectives. So I think that's important. I don't have any additional things, I don't have any additional restrictions I'd like to impose. I'm someone who believes and has said many times that I think that the crisis in housing affordability is a primary threat to our community. I understand the state has kind of forced our hand on this, but I think there's an opportunity to figure out how we can encourage more responsible and sustainable development with this that creates opportunities for people to stay in their houses because they can do more creative things with their property. And that we can address some of these other concerns in parallel. So I'm glad that we're moving ahead with this, and I very much support that and look forward to more conversations in ordinance. Thank you very much. I think that's a good approach.
Thank you, Councilor McDonald. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, no, I have a couple questions. I mean, and these are more notes. I mean, I do think that what we should do ultimately with the paper, and I actually have something else to raise, but is to pass this on to a joint planning and rules and ordinance committee so we can tackle that and get public input. So a few things that, I've been dealing with the talk of site plan review in terms of other, Chapter 40B uses, educational, religious, and daycares. And one of the questions that I think comes up, and I think it's maybe a overwhelming one thing of an additional concern related to the staff is that has the city analyzed, and this don't have to have an answer, but Alex and Maria and Michelle and staff, have we really looked at what resources it's going to take to actually implement our ordinance if we in fact do it? So that's one of the questions I have. You don't have to try to answer it, but I think in the course of adopting this, I mean, one of the things, so that's one of the questions I have is that, and so I think in the vein, and I'll talk about a little bit what I want to introduce is that one of the questions I have is also to look at, right now there's a proposal that to have in the intensity use square foot, the lot has to be at least 7,500 square feet. How many lots in Malden would qualify? And that, so the type of thing, so there's some of those questions I would be looking for to be answered. So those are just some key things. And the other thing is that in that vein, I'm going to hand out, I did take a look at this once it was sent out with our agenda. And I think that what would be fair as we're having a hearing is I think that to propose, I'd say, what I call alternate B. And this is a little my perspective. What I've seen, I've been a resident in Maplewood since 1991. The neighborhood in Maplewood, Maplewood is not, doesn't have huge homes like some part of our community, but we have starter homes. And what I've seen over the course of my living in the neighborhood is that as homes have changed hands, there's been some pretty substantial additions. I mean, I think if the ADU law was in place now, those additions would probably have done as separate units. But I've had several neighbors do 50% expansions of their living, and went through the ZBA process and the variances. And when they reached out to their neighbors and they were pretty relatively expansions that fit into the character of the neighborhood, 4 out of the 5 that I can recall went relatively smoothly with the ZBA. Now, someone came in and proposed to tear down a building and basically just try to maximize that, and the neighborhood fought against that. So I guess in my experience, at least in my neighborhood, that I think that, the typical lot size is usually 50-foot frontage and somewhere around 100 in depth. So 5,000 square feet is the historic ones. And so my concern is that I've seen people actually move out of my neighborhood because they are a multi-generational family and they could not have a unit for their elderly mother. Someone who was a great community member here in Malden had to move out. And I see that, that type of thing, that there's a desire that, families are changing, families aren't as big. And if, I see the dynamic of the family are somewhat structured differently, and that sometimes multiple adults are living. They don't want to live as roommates, but they want to live in the same building. So I think that's something that I'd like to have more flexibility. So I'm handing down the line. Sorry. What I could solve passing it to everybody. I had one for everybody, but what I'm handing down was I'd like to propose that in addition to sending the mayor's paper to Rules and Ordinance as kind of Plan A, I would propose that what I'm handing around is sort of a Plan B, which sort of takes into account a little more flexibility. It doesn't give carte blanche to everybody. Like if we don't act, it could happen anywhere and we wouldn't have much guidance for staff. But I think this is somewhat maybe a middling ground that more flexibility for that. But it would, especially neighborhoods that are particularly compacted, it would, allow that. So just for example, I'll go through so people on, Chris, who's not here, But right now, the dimensional controls proposed by staff are 7,500 square
Yeah,
feet.
Counselor Windsor,
Yes,
if possible.
Okay, sure.
This is the discussion that we would like to have in ordinance.
Right.
So I'm taking this as an amendment to add to the existing paper.
Right.
On your motion to amend to add Plan B, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Counselor Simonelli.
So we can discuss more at that public hearing, but I just thought it would be good for discussion. I feel like we should have a range of ideas to talk about at the public hearing. We can get public input. And then, as a council, I would hate to have one proposal out there, and when other of us might have some other things in mind that, that hasn't presented at the public hearing. So I just put this as an alternative to be discussed and
Thank you.
expand the discussion of the.
Thank you, Counselor.
Motion's been made.
The clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Cologne Hayes. Counselor.
Oh, yeah, sure. Hold on. There's a request to have some discussion about the amendment. I have Counselor Cologne Hayes, Linehan, and Crow. Did y'all want to talk about the amendment?
Kid, I just explained, like, so this is not striking what the staff did. It would just be adding. So there'd be option A and option B, and I did reach out to Planner Romero, and this, in the Overlook Ridge zoning, there was a similar type of thing that went through. So it's just an option that can be discussed, and that way the public has a range of ideas that might be discussed with the council when it comes to rules and ordinance. And so we're not striking out anything, we're just adding to the discussion of what would be noticed in the public hearing, and those alternatives, we can get opinion on both sides, and then we can talk about that as a council. So this is a very important issue for the council.
Counselor Winslow, I'm going to go to Counselor Crow
Right,
for
sure.
discussion on the amendment.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, as we said at the beginning, that we can make things looser, you know, through the joint planning and ordinance, but we can't make them more strict. So, to me, these are the things that you do have the conversation about in ordinance, to say it's from 75,000 feet to, 5,000 square feet. So, but makes it less restrictive. So, again, making an amendment to a paper that's there, are we sending two papers in? Or are these just gonna be the, sort of what the discussion is, that I think it should be, 5,000 square feet, not 75,000 square feet? It just seems to be that we should, again, as we said, had the ceiling, and then we can lower the ceiling, but having an amendment, as this has been described, seems like it does kind of strike some of the other things. So why are we amending that and not?
So the only thing, I'm going to hand it over to Counselor Linehan next. But the only thing is, I think some of these things say, like, for instance, on number 2, it says existing height. So there do seem to be some language additions. But I see what you're saying when it comes to, like, purely the 7,500 to 5,000. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, the special permit, and then it's yes, and you mean, like, so those seem to be less restrictive, and that's why you take the ceiling and then you figure out where we're gonna make the changes.
So I'm gonna hand it off to Counselor Linehan and then Counselor Winslow to respond. Counselor Linehan.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I just wanted to sort of clarify, I'm going to look to Planner Romero to correct me if I'm wrong, because we did have a meeting, Council President and I met today to go through the amendments submitted by Counselor Winslow and just kind of determine a process here, because I think we're on a bit of a tight timeline, and I just wanted to lay it out, not just for us up here, but for the public as well. So this state law goes into effect on February 2nd, meaning that if we pass nothing, the state law will actually override anything that we do or don't have on the books. So this isn't like the MBTA communities where we have to certify zoning to the state, they approve it, and then there's this waiting period in which, whatever we're working on basically freezes the zoning. If we have nothing, February 2nd, literally 8 a.m., people can come in with architectural plans, and Nelson will have to entertain them. And I know we already have folks interested. I'm sure others are getting emails. I'm hearing from constituents. There are certainly folks getting ready, so it behooves us to do what we can between now and then. So by way of process, because it's such a compressed time frame, we essentially have tonight's meeting. We have the need to advertise the joint planning and ordinance meeting for the end of January has to start this week in the Advocate, because it has to run for 2 weeks. So we effectively can't meet again in committee to refer the paper. So what we've asked the team that's worked on this to do, what Councilor O'Malley and I have asked them to do, is come to the ordinance committee to allow us to have more of a brainstorm discussion and prep for joint planning and ordinance, but not to send the paper there and then send it back with amendments. And so the advice that we got in the meeting with the team that's been working on this is that we actually put forward everything we might want to discuss tonight and append it to the paper so that it's able to be advertised in the paper, in the newspaper, so that the public can see everything that we're considering. I hear your point, Councilor Crowe, about if we're striking things, then it looks like that's off the table. And what I heard from Planner Romero was that what we have before us that the mayor's staff has submitted is essentially the most restrictive that we're likely to discuss, and then we would be making it more permissive if we were to do the amendments that Councilor Winslow or anybody else might submit. So I think we're essentially saying the same thing. We want to take the most restrictive and then discuss from there if we want to make it more permissive. But if we don't give all the information to the public at the time that we advertise, which has to happen later this week, then we can't discuss. We would be changing the paper substantially and would not then be able to pass what we want in order to be in place by February 2nd.
Correct.
Does that make sense? I'm seeing nodding. I want to make sure I characterized the conversation correctly with the city staff. So that's why we would be having not a referral, but a conversation in ordinance next week.
Thank you, Councilor Linehan. I see Councilor Cologne Hayes, you have your light. Would you like to talk?
Yes.
Okay.
I wanted to speak on this paper. I might have misunderstood on the agenda. I thought we were going to have a presentation, so I'd have had more questions. So,
Just to clarify, I actually asked that this be kept as brief as possible.
Got it.
So that we can actually have more in-depth conversation ordinance. So
Okay.
that is not a reflection of the presenters. That is a request that I have made.
Okay.
That the bulk of this discussion happen in ordinance.
okay, that makes way more sense. I would have had questions. I was saving my questions till then. But now that I have the floor, I would like to say I am very much in support of this. And I like what Councilor Linehan just explained. It seems like the fastest way to kind of move things along. So I support that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Motion to move the paper into ordinance.
Councilor Winslow, did you want to speak one more time? Oh yeah, Councilor Spatafora. No, Councilor Spatafora for the first time. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
I just want to, procedurally for these meetings, I think it's very helpful, because I think what I'm hearing, forget square footage, right, whether it's 5 or 7, essentially, I think it's the entire city. Let's be realistic. It's the entire city. It's commercial use, it's 5 families, it's 4 families, it's 6 families, it's everything. All you have to do is say, I want to add an ADU, and there's nothing we can do. So for me, and I think for our community, we have technology, we should have the GIS maps, right? Because I think it's helpful to see these things. And again, I'm not debating on square footage, but it's the entire city, and we can say that, but I think until we show the community, because we all know very often when we talk about changes, the residents don't understand our terminology, our vocabulary, and then when something happens, they say, how did this happen? I didn't know this was gonna happen, or they think something's gonna happen, it's not gonna happen, or vice versa. So I would just employ whoever's gonna do the presentation at these meetings to have as much of the GIS, the maps, like Council Winslow wants, the parcels with the square footage. I think it's very helpful for myself. I'm certainly other members of this, but certainly the community. That's all I had. Thank
I
you.
appreciate that, Councilor Spatafora. Great point. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, no, I just want a point of clarification on, I mean, my intent here on, and in having this paper is to add it to the paper, to have it as an option and refer it to joint rules and ordinance and planning. So that's not to refer it to rules and ordinance, but so that's my intent. So is that what your intent is, Councilor Simonelli, just refer
Yes,
this? Okay,
That's the
all right.
motion. So
All right,
there's a
that's all.
motion to amend on the floor.
Yeah,
And
no,
the clerk
it's-
will, Councilor
So I
Condon.
guess I'm not, I'm appending this, not
Yeah,
amending it.
I
guess
I understand.
Will you append this paper to?
Councilor Condon for the first time.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to make sure I understand this. We're going to be adding a bunch of units. Do you have any idea how many units could possibly be added by right?
Hundreds. Thousands.
I don't have an exact number. We will have that number or an approximate number at the hearing because we can make an estimate using the GIS system. I will say I would expect it's going to be in the thousands.
Thousands.
But I do want to just make one point of clarification, or two if I could. It's the entire city that would be exempt from the parking requirement. However, the way this is proposed is this will only be allowed in residence A, B, C, residential office, and neighborhood business. So only in those districts. So if you're in the other districts, central business, highway business, industrial 1 or 2, this would not be an option as proposed. And I want to just make note of that. That would be an example. If you want to propose to allow these in other districts, you would need to amend this paper tonight. This is proposed in accordance with state law. Districts where single-family dwellings are allowed, or at least that's what the guidelines are currently telling us. And I also want to make note of that. The guidelines are going to change, or could potentially change. So in the event the guidelines change and it's no longer includes bus routes, it only includes what the state law says, which is half mile of a subway station or bus station, it will not be the entire city exempt from parking. We'll go back to just the half mile. So that is a key thing that hopefully we will have by January 27th. We may not have it by January 27th, which is why I want to also just clarify, if you're amending in accordance or you're appending, for example, Councilor Winslow proposes to delete parking. No parking is required for ADU. I would recommend you do not do that because if the state changes its guidelines, we can require parking for some ADUs. So, you know, we wouldn't want to delete it all based on guidelines that are still draft. So I'm not sure, I thought you were going to propose to amend it, so it would be or, what's written, or these other alternatives. I'm not sure about appending it, I don't know what that means, but I just want to be clear, because I've got the notice prepared, and I want to amend the notice accordingly, so that we're covered when we have the public hearing. Is the paper being amended? So when the public goes and looks into the system and says, what are they going to hear at the public hearing and discuss, that paper needs to be attached, and you need to have your record that you want that paper discussed. You know what I'm saying? So the record needs to be very clear.
My understanding is that Councilor Condon, do you have any follow-up?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to let Councilor Condon follow up, and I'll clarify your question.
So we're going to add thousands of units in the city, estimate, best estimate, okay? Where are the cars going to go? Because I don't have much room down there in Ward 2. I can't figure that out. And there's going to be no parking oversight for these people that add a unit?
For units that are within a half mile of a T station or a bus route at this point, no parking will be required for the new unit. It remains to be seen whether we can regulate parking for the existing unit, because in many cases, the new unit, whether it's an addition or in an accessory structure, is going to displace existing parking for the existing units. So that remains to be seen how we're going to be able to regulate that.
The way I look at it, there's not enough parking now
I agree.
with
Yeah.
what we have for housing. I can't imagine looking beyond a half a mile, all those streets on the outskirts. What's going to happen? Everybody going to have bicycles or something? Because you're not going to be able to park cars.
Yeah.
Boy.
That's the
So how do
intent.
we make this thing more difficult? or-
Councilor Condon, so we are looking to, just to clarify the city planner's question, the way I've taken this is that Councilor Winslow is looking to amend, not by striking anything, but amend by adding this entire second paper as a and/or. I don't think it is the best use of our time to go line by line. This could happen in ordinance, but there are some things like there are some additional wording in here that could be considered an addition and not a, like, deletion. That's how I've taken Counselor Winslow's motion. Thank you, Counselor Condon.
Council President,
I'm gonna call the question. There's an amendment on the floor to, Counselor Seeker for the,
I'm just a little
Person.
confused after listening to everybody up here for the last 15 minutes. If we have to pass something by February 2nd, and we have the option to pass at a higher thing, and we can go lower, but we can't go higher, why wouldn't we just go for the highest that we can go at this moment, and then we're not rushing all of this by February 2nd? That, like, it seems like all of a sudden, everybody's rushing because we have to put something on paper before the February 2nd deadline. So I think we should put on paper the highest we can go for the time being, and then we can have these conversations, whether we're gonna go from 5,000 to 7,500, and if we're gonna require parking or not require parking. I think that we should be voting to send out the highest at this moment. So then we're not ruining it for ourselves in the future, because in a month from now or 2 months from now, we could say, oh, we should have did this. But if we go low, we're not gonna be able to go back high. So right now, I think instead of us rushing it and looking like kind of idiots, if there's something that comes up, like Michelle just said, they're constantly changing this. This isn't even finalized. So I think right now, we should be voting on whatever is the higher requirements that the state has down, and then we have the ability to go down. But once we go down, we will never have the ability to go back up again. So because we don't know the outcome of this, I think that should technically be the way that we go with this.
I appreciate,
thank you.
I appreciate that, Counselor Seeker, and I agree. I think this conversation really should be happening in ordinance. I am gonna call the roll on amending it to add Plan B as presented by Counselor Winslow. The clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Cologne Hayes. Yes. Counselor Condon. No. Counselor Crowe. No. Counselor Linehan.
Yes.
Counselor McDonald. Yes. Counselor Seeker.
No.
Counselor Simonelli.
no.
Counselor Spatafora.
Way to go. We need him. We have to wait.
Yep, Counselor McDonald's point of order.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify something. I think there was a misunderstanding in the question that Councilor Conan had asked Planner Romero. I think the question you asked Councilor Conan was how many theoretical units could be permitted under this law? And Planner Romero, your answer was thousands, correct? Thousands would likely be able to be theoretically permitted. But then I think that was also.
Counselor McDonald, we're gonna go back to the voting now that Counselor Spatafora is back, and we will return to your point of order. Counselor Spatafora, it's a motion to amend by adding the Plan B that was presented by Counselor Winslow.
No.
Counselor Taylor. Yes. Counselor Winslow. Yes. Council President O'Malley.
Yes.
6 to 5.
Okay, the paper has been amended. I will return to Counselor McDonald's point of order. But what's the point of order, though?
I want to make sure that the record reflects that we're not putting into the record that we estimate that thousands of units will be built on this. Those things just got conflated in the conversation.
Understood. Thank you, Counselor McDonald.
Mr. President,
Yep, so we're gonna, yep, so is there a motion to refer this to joint ordinance and planning? Counselor Linehan, seconded by Counselor Winslow, to refer this to a joint ordinance and planning board hearing. The clerk will call the roll.
Counselor Cologne Hayes. Yes. Counselor Condon. Counselor Crowe.
Yes.
Counselor Linehan.
Yes.
Counselor McDonald. Yes. Counselor Seeker.
Yes.
Counselor Simonelli.
yes.
Counselor Spatafora. Yes. Counselor Taylor.
Yes.
Counselor Winslow. Yes. Council President O'Malley.
No. The next order of business. Oh, yeah, it was preferred.
It was referred 9 to 2. Haven't
Yep, so we have public comment. Public comment is allowed under council rules. Each speaker is limited to the subject matter relevant to the evening's agenda and must keep their comments to 2 minutes or less. The clerk is just collecting the list. It sounds like we do have some people who have signed up for public comment. If you have signed up, please feel free to come up to the podium.
First name on our list is Carol Harrington.
Carol Harrington. Welcome.
Sure what I was signing up for.
Oh, well. Well, welcome to public comment.
But I am pro-ADU, and I'm hoping it happens. I live on Ferry Street among multi-families, 3 family, 4 families, 2 families, and I'm one of maybe 3 single families. And years ago, I requested if I could convert it to a 2-family, and it was denied. So when the ADU stuff came around, and I got very interested in it, and I intend to create an ADU, an internal ADU in my house. So I'm hoping this all passes. I have parking. And I just didn't understand the yard, the square footage. Is that for if you're building another house on the land, or is you talking about where the house stands?
So in public comment, we can't really
Oh,
interact. I
yeah,
apologize,
okay.
otherwise I would. No worries.
Okay. All right.
But we will clarify, we have an ordinance committee, so if you could attend the ordinance committee, that would be really helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Lois Pepe is next.
Lois Pepe? Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, so Lois Pepe is in support. And do we have anything do we have anything to be read into the record?
Yes, we do. We have one email to be read into the record. It says, "Dear City Council, when you discuss accessory dwelling units, please keep in mind the spirit of the underlying Affordable Homes Act, which makes these innovative new housing options available. The AHA is intended to, quote, to counter rising housing costs caused by high demand and limited supply," end quote. The AHA was signed into law by Governor Maura Healey on August 6, 2024, and allows ADUs less than 900 square feet to be built by right in single-family zoning districts in all communities, while prohibiting owner occupancy requirements as well as parking mandates within a half a mile of transit. The positive impacts this can have on Malden are easily imagined. This includes improved health, lifestyle, flexibility, and affordability of housing for Malden residents. The opportunities for the City of Malden are many in embracing this forward progress for housing. It is critical for city leaders to embrace the benefits of ADUs can bring to the City of Malden and its residents. Moreover, it is crucial that city leaders avoid unnecessary complications and costs in implementation of this new law. I look forward to your clear communication on the affordable pathways ahead to help Malden understand and implement the statewide legislation. Balancing reasonable local controls with forward-thinking state goals is in the public interest. Thank you for working to streamline this process and make it available, accessible, and inclusive for all Malden residents who would like to participate. Sincerely, Brian DeLacy, 1 Earl Street.
Thank you very much. We now have our consent agenda. This evening's consent agenda consists of meeting minutes to be approved, 1 appointment to be referred to personnel, and 9 petitions to be referred to license. Does any counselor have a desire to remove any of these items from the consent agenda for the purpose of further discussion? Seeing none, Councilor Sika to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
By Councilor Simonelli. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Clone Hayes. Yes. Councilor Condon. Yes. Councilor Crowe. Yes. Councilor Linehan. Yes. Councilor McDonald. Yes. Councilor Sika. Yes. Councilor Simonelli.
Yes.
Councilor Spatafora. Yes. Councilor Taylor. Yes. Councilor Winslow. Yes. Council President O'Malley.
Yes.
Consent agenda is approved, 11-0.
Mr. President, may I just say something?
Yes, Councilor Simonelli, you have the floor.
Thank you. You know, I just want to say that, you know, nobody's been more of an advocate on developing affordable home ownership in my district, and I'll continue to do so. But I got to say that what's coming ahead is not good for this city, because it's going to take a serious impact on our infrastructure, the class sizes, fire department? Are we planning on, making them bigger? Police department? So, I mean, we've got to take all these things into consideration, which I don't think the governor has. So these are some things that we're gonna have to really take a look at moving into the future. I know we've already talked about it. I don't want to be, beating a dead horse here. But again, for some neighborhoods, it works. Single-family homes in Forestdale, people that live at home want, their kids to live, have in-laws, that's fine. Some other places in Ward 3, same thing. But you take a ride down in the Holyoke section of my neighborhood, man, and see 6 and 7 unit dwellings of absentee landlords that don't give a care about the property. And now you're gonna allow them to build even more units? Ridiculous. That's all I can tell you.
Thank you.
It's gonna be a problem.
Thank you for your personal privilege, Councilor Simonelli.
Thank you, Mr. President.
The docket is clear. Is there any other personal privilege? On Councilor Sika's Councilor Cologne Hayes has a personal privilege.
Thank you. I'll try and make this brief. First of all, I just wanted to thank publicly Councilor Winslow for leading us last year, and I just wanted to thank you for that, and then also to congratulate publicly to our new council president, Ryan O'Malley. I know I don't have to say this, but you always had what it takes to lead this council. You're smart, you have emotional intelligence, empathy. You care deeply, deeply about this community, and most of all, you're brave. So I can't wait to see what we're going to do together this year. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the kind words. I will just say from the floor, I met with various department heads preparing for this, and I want to thank them. But I do want to highlight some really great words of wisdom that our city treasurer, Dan Grover, shared with me when he talked about the most important thing in our lives is health and family. And I just want to say I'm so grateful to have both of that. So thank you, Dan, for the great words of wisdom. And thank you to everyone for being here tonight. Is there, on Councilor Sika's motion to adjourn? Councilor Winslow has a personal privilege.
Actually, I wanted to ask Councilor Colin Hayes to talk about the MLK celebration. So if you can just do that, thank you.
Thank you very much. I was going to say that, and then got eyes from people like, wrap it up. So we are having, I've been announcing it a couple of times, but the Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration, it's the theme is making the dream a reality. Last year it was continuing the dream. It is going to be on a Saturday at the Emmanuel Baptist Church. That was January 18th, Saturday, 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. At the Emmanuel Baptist Church. Keynote speaker is going to be Dr. Deborah Jackson. There's going to be youth speakers and more. And just want to thank, there's a committee, we've all been working on it, and Koshana is part of that, the city, myself, former counselor Neil Anderson, and there's obviously the pastor and a few more of us, and we've just been working hard, so I hope you all join us. There's a bit on that added on to this that's not on this flyer, so there is going to be food there that we weren't sure if we had a lot of room to have like a sit-down dinner, so they're going to have like some soul food that you can buy and take home at the end of the day. If you're hungry, you just purchase it there and take home, or you can sit and eat it depending on the space. So I think it is $20, I'm going to say, $15 to $20, so be prepared for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. On Councilor Sika's motion to adjourn, seconded by Councilor.
President, I have personal privilege.
Oh, yep, Councilor Simonelli.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank all the people during the holidays that helped me with Suffolk Manor with their dinner. We had a great time down there. Also with the toy giveaway down at the Newland Street Housing Development. I'd like to thank the Malden Housing Authority, Steve Finn, for helping us put that on. It was a very successful evening. And I'm going to be down here in Laguna Beach, California for a little while. I'm heading up a substance abuse program for high executives for my son. Well, he's opening one in Miami. So I am going to be coming back to Boston as fast as I can. So be patient, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. On the motion to adjourn, the clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Cologne Hayes. Yes. Councilor Condon. Yes. Councilor Crowe. Yes. Councilor Linehan. Yes. Councilor McDonald. Yes. Councilor Sika. Councilor Simonelli.
Yes.
Councilor Spatafora. Councilor Taylor. Yes. Councilor Winslow. Yes. Council President O'Malley.
Yes, the meeting is adjourned at 8:30. Thank you all.
Great job, Council President.
Thank you, Councilor Simonelli.
Thank you.